Life sentence without the possibility of parole. The words echoed through the packed courtroom like a death knell. 68-year-old Denise Washington sat in the defendant's chair, her hands shaking as the judge's gavel came down with finality. "No," she whispered, but her voice was lost in the chaos of the courtroom. Behind her, supporters wept. In front of her, the victim's family nodded with grim satisfaction. And somewhere in the gallery, two men in expensive suits exchanged a look of devastation. Denise Washington had just been sentenced to die in prison for a murder she didn't commit. 23 years earlier, on a cold December night in 1999, Denise had been walking home from her job cleaning offices downtown when she heard crying coming from behind a dumpster. What she found broke her heart. Two children, a boy and a girl, maybe 8 and 6 years old, huddled together in a cardboard box. They were white, dirty, clearly homeless, and absolutely terrified. "Hey there," Denise said softly, crouching down to their level. "What are you two doing out here?" The boy, the older one, pulled his sister closer. "Don't hurt us, lady. We'll move. We weren't doing nothing wrong." Denise felt tears sting her eyes. These babies were living on the street. "I'm not going to hurt you, honey. What are your names?" "I'm Jake," the boy said hesitantly. "This is my sister Emma. Our mama died last month. They were going to split us up, put us in different homes, so we ran away. We stay together," little Emma added, her voice barely a whisper. "Jake takes care of me." Denise looked at these two children, white children in a predominantly black neighborhood, and knew she had a choice to make. She was a single black woman working 3 jobs just to keep her own small apartment. She had no business taking in 2 homeless kids, especially white kids that would raise questions and complications she couldn't afford. But she also couldn't walk away. "You two must be hungry," she said. "How about you come home with me tonight? Just for tonight, until we figure something out." Jake's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Why would you help us? You don't even know us." "Because that's what you do," Denise replied simply. "When you see someone who needs help, you help them." That one night turned into 2 nights, then a week, then a month. Denise never officially adopted Jake and Emma. She couldn't afford the legal fees, and she was terrified that social services would take them away from her anyway. So she kept them under the radar, enrolled them in school using her address, and told people they were her nephew and niece visiting for an extended stay. For 3 years, Jake and Emma lived with Denise in her tiny 2-bedroom apartment. She worked her 3 jobs to keep food on the table and clothes on their backs. She helped with homework, attended school plays, bandaged scraped knees, and loved them like they were her own children. Jake was brilliant with numbers and had dreams of becoming a lawyer. Emma was artistic and wanted to design buildings. Denise encouraged both of them, even when money was tight, even when other people questioned why a black woman was raising white children. "You don't owe anybody an explanation," she told them when kids at school asked why their guardian didn't look like them. "Family isn't about what color you are. Family is about who loves you." In 2002, when Jake was 11 and Emma was 9, their biological father, a man who had abandoned them years before their mother's death, suddenly reappeared. He'd gotten clean, found steady work, and wanted his children back. The custody battle was swift and brutal. Denise had no legal standing. She wasn't a relative, hadn't formally adopted them, and had no legal rights whatsoever. "Please," she begged the family court judge, "these children have been with me for 3 years. I'm the only stable family they know." But the judge sided with biological family. Jake and Emma were removed from Denise's home and placed with their father in another state. The last thing Jake said to her as social workers led him away was, "I'll never forget what you did for us, Denise. Never. And someday, I'm gonna be a lawyer and make sure things like this don't happen to good people like you." Denise never saw them again. She tried to stay in touch, but their father cut off all contact. Letters were returned unopened. Phone calls went unanswered. Eventually, Denise had to accept that Jake and Emma were gone from her life forever. But she never forgot them. For the next 20 years, Denise continued her quiet life. She eventually got a better job as a nurse's aide, moved to a slightly larger apartment, and tried to rebuild the piece of her heart that had been torn away when the children left. She never married, never had children of her own. Jake and Emma had been her only taste of motherhood, and losing them had devastated her in ways she never fully recovered from. Then, in 2022, everything changed. Denise's upstairs neighbor, Marcus Thompson, was found dead in his apartment. He'd been beaten and robbed, his small cache of cash and prescription medication stolen. The police investigation focused immediately on Denise. She'd been the last person to see Marcus alive. She'd brought him soup when he was sick the day before he died. Her fingerprints were in his apartment. She had access to his spare key because she sometimes helped him with groceries. And she was a black woman in a neighborhood where suspicion fell easily on people who looked like her. "I didn't do this," Denise told Detective Rodriguez during her interrogation. "Marcus was my friend. I would never hurt him." "But you were there that day," Rodriguez pressed. "You had opportunity, and you certainly had motive. Everyone knows Marcus kept cash in his apartment, and you've been struggling financially. I brought him soup because he was sick. I've been bringing him soup for 5 years whenever he wasn't feeling well." But the evidence, circumstantial as it was, painted a compelling picture for the prosecution. Denise's public defender, overworked and underpaid, advised her to take a plea deal. "They're offering manslaughter with 15 years, he told her. "If you go to trial and lose, you're looking at life." "I didn't do it," Denise insisted. "I won't plead guilty to something I didn't do." The trial was a nightmare. The prosecution painted Denise as a desperate woman who had killed her elderly neighbor for drug money. The defense, hampered by lack of resources and time, couldn't present an effective counternarrative. The all-white jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning a guilty verdict on first-degree murder charges. Life sentence without the possibility of parole. As court officers prepared to escort Denise to prison, she looked out at the mostly empty gallery one last time, accepting that she would die behind bars for a crime she didn't commit. That's when she saw them. 2 people in expensive suits sitting in the back row, both of them crying. The man was tall, maybe 31 years old, with light brown hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. The woman was shorter, blonde, with an artistic scarf draped around her shoulders. Denise's heart stopped. Jake, Emma, the children she'd raised for 3 years had grown into successful adults, and somehow they were here. As the bailiffs led Denise away in shackles, she heard Jake's voice call out, "We're going to fix this. Denise, I promise you, we're going to fix this." That night, in her prison cell, Denise wondered if she'd imagined the whole thing. How had they found her? How had they even known about the trial? She got her answer 3 days later when Jake and Emma came to visit her in prison. "We never stopped looking for you," Jake said, his voice thick with emotion. "It took us years to track you down. Dad moved us across the country and changed our last names. He told us you didn't want to see us anymore. But we knew that wasn't true," Emma added. "We knew you loved us. So when I turned 18, I started searching. It took me 4 years to find you. We've been keeping tabs on you ever since," Jake continued. "We knew about your job, your apartment, your life. We wanted to reconnect. But we were scared you might not want to see us after all these years." Denise was crying now. "I never stopped loving you too. Never. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. You saved our lives," Emma said simply. "And now we're going to save yours." "How?" Denise asked. "I've been convicted. My appeals are almost exhausted." Jake smiled through his tears. "Remember what I told you when they took us away? I said I was going to become a lawyer. You did. I did. I'm a criminal defense attorney now. I specialize in wrongful convictions. And Emma here is a forensic architect. She analyzes crime scenes and helps prove innocence through spatial evidence. We've been working on your case since the day you were arrested, Emma explained. We hired private investigators, forensic experts, everything. And we found something the police missed, Jake said, pulling out a thick folder. Something that proves you didn't kill Marcus Thompson. Over the next hour, Jake and Emma laid out their findings. The real killer was Marcus's nephew, David Thompson, a drug addict with a history of robbing elderly relatives. Security footage from a building across the street showed David entering and leaving Marcus's apartment building at the time of the murder. The police had never interviewed David because Marcus's sister had lied and said her son was in rehab that week. Cell phone records proved he wasn't. Most damning of all, Emma's forensic analysis of the crime scene showed that the killer had to be at least 6 feet tall based on the angle of the fatal blow. Denise was 5'4". Why didn't my lawyer find this? Denise asked. Because he didn't have the resources, Jake replied. Public defenders handle hundreds of cases. They don't have time or money for private investigators and expert witnesses. But we do, Emma added. We've made good lives for ourselves, Denise. Really good lives. And we owe it all to you. The appeals process took 18 months, but Jake and Emma never gave up. They hired the best appellate lawyers, brought in forensic experts, and systematically dismantled the prosecution's case. They also did something else. They made Denise's story public. Emma, now a successful architectural consultant, used her professional network to spread awareness about the case. Jake, a partner at a prestigious law firm, leveraged his connections in the legal community. But most importantly, they told the story of the black woman who had taken in 2 homeless white children and loved them unconditionally. Denise Washington saved our lives when we were 8 and 6 years old, Jake told a packed press conference. She didn't have to help us. She had every reason not to. We were different races. She was barely making ends meet and taking us in created complications in her life. But she helped us anyway, Emma continued, because that's who she is. She's the kind of person who sees children in need and opens her heart, regardless of what they look like or where they come from. And now she's sitting in prison for a murder she didn't commit, Jake said, his voice breaking. The woman who taught us about love and family and doing the right thing is being punished for a crime she didn't commit. The story went viral. News outlets picked it up. Social media exploded with #JusticeForDenise hashtags. Celebrity lawyers offered their services pro bono. Most importantly, the pressure forced the district attorney's office to reopen the investigation. When they finally arrested David Thompson based on Jake and Emma's evidence, he confessed within hours. I was high, he admitted. I needed money for drugs. Uncle Marcus wouldn't give me any, so I hit him. I hit him too hard. I never meant to kill him. On a sunny Tuesday morning in March 2024, Denise Washington walked out of prison a free woman. Jake and Emma were waiting for her. I can't believe it, Denise said, breathing free air for the first time in 2 years. I can't believe you two did this. You saved us first, Jake reminded her. This is just us returning the favor. Plus, Emma added with a grin, we weren't about to let our mom spend the rest of her life in prison for something she didn't do. Your mom? Denise asked, tears streaming down her face. You'll always be our mom, Jake said firmly. Blood doesn't make family. Love makes family. You taught us that. The 3 of them stood there on the courthouse steps, holding each other and crying, while reporters captured the moment that would become one of the most powerful images of the year. A black woman embracing the 2 white children she'd raised, all of them united by a love that had survived decades of separation and a justice system that had nearly destroyed them. That evening, Denise sat in Emma's beautiful home. Emma had indeed become an architect, surrounded by photos of the family she'd thought she'd lost forever. "I need to ask you something," she said to Jake and Emma. "Why didn't you contact me sooner? You said you found me years ago." Jake and Emma exchanged glances. "We were scared," Emma admitted. "Scared that maybe you wouldn't want to see us. Scared that we might disrupt your life again. And we were angry," Jake added quietly. "Angry at our father for keeping us apart. Angry at the system that took us away from the best home we'd ever had. Angry at ourselves for not fighting harder to stay with you. We spent years in therapy dealing with the trauma of losing you," Emma continued. "Our father he wasn't a bad man, but he wasn't you. He never understood us the way you did. We both struggled," Jake said. "Emma had anxiety and depression. I had anger issues. It took us a long time to heal from being separated from the person who loved us most. Denise felt her heart breaking for them all over again. I should have fought harder to keep you," she said. "You did everything you could," Emma replied firmly. "You were one woman up against the entire system. You couldn't have done more. But we can do more now," Jake said. "We want to make sure this never happens to another family." Over the next year, Jake and Emma used their success and resources to establish the Denise Washington Foundation, dedicated to helping kinship families navigate the legal system and providing resources for informal guardians who were caring for children. They also pushed for legislative changes to protect people like Denise, informal guardians who provide loving homes for children but lack legal recognition or support. "The system failed all of us," Jake told a congressional subcommittee on family law. "It failed us as children when it separated us from the woman who was giving us the love and stability we needed. And it failed Denise when it wrongly convicted her of a crime she didn't commit. We need to do better," Emma added. "We need to recognize that families come in all shapes and colors, and that love is more important than biology or paperwork." 3 years after her release, Denise was invited to speak at a conference on criminal justice reform. "People ask me if I'm bitter," she told the audience. "If I'm angry about the 2 years I spent in prison for a crime I didn't commit. If I resent the system that took my children away from me." She paused, looking out at Jake and Emma in the front row. "And the truth is, yes, I'm angry about injustice. I'm angry about a system that separates loving families and convicts innocent people. But I'm not bitter about my life. Because those 2 homeless children I found behind a dumpster 25 years ago didn't just change my life. They saved it. They taught me what it means to love unconditionally. They gave me purpose. And when I needed them most, they came back and saved me. Some people say I rescued Jake and Emma, but the truth is they rescued me right back. They rescued me from loneliness, from despair, and ultimately from a life sentence I didn't deserve. That's what real family does. Real family shows up for each other, no matter how much time has passed, no matter what obstacles stand in the way, no matter what color anyone is or where anyone comes from. Real family is about choice. It's about deciding to love someone and then proving that love through your actions. Every single day. The audience gave her a standing ovation. But Denise only had eyes for Jake and Emma, the 2 children who had taught her the greatest lesson of all. Sometimes the people you save end up being the ones who save you. And sometimes the best families are the ones you choose, not the ones you're born into. But most importantly, love always finds a way, even when it takes 23 years. Even when it has to break down the walls of a prison to do it. Love always finds a way. What did you think of Denise's story? Have you ever been helped by a stranger who changed your life? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And if this story moved you, please share it to help others understand the power of chosen family and the importance of criminal justice reform.